Organizing your novel into chapters is a crucial aspect of structuring your story. So, let's learn how. Hey guys, I'm Marilyn and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be discussing how to organize your book into chapters. But before we dive into today's content, remember to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell if you don't want to miss any videos. Also remember that I now offer editing and proofreading services, link in the description box below. And if you want to read a fantasy adventure novel for adults, give my debut, To Wear a Crown, a try. The universal book link is in the description box below. So now, without further ado, let's dive into my 5 tips for how to organize your book into chapters. Step number 1. Big picture planning comes first. You need to plan your novel's overall structure before you start dividing it into chapters. So this includes identifying your key plot points, your character arcs, and your major events. Now, a lot of this will depend on whether you do plotting or pantsing. So if you're a plotter, this will happen before you write. You'll set out your outline and you need to do some structuring in terms of that outline. And the most popular way to do that, and which basically all the story models essentially follow, is dividing your book into 3 acts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. And once you've done that, you can then further subdivide those parts into chapters. The point is that it's difficult to organize it into the final chapters that you're actually going to have if you don't have the story in front of you from the get-go. So even if you're a pantser, you're going to have to wait until you have the structure and then you can divide it into chapters. Tip number 2, focus on scenes and arcs. Chapters usually revolve around a certain set of scenes, or perhaps even only one scene, or certain arcs. So you have to organize your chapters around significant events, character development, or shifts in the story's direction. Each chapter should have a clear purpose that moves the book forward, reveals new information, or develops characters. So you need to know, what is the point of this chapter? What is this chapter trying to achieve? Is it a character development chapter? Is it an information chapter? Is it an action chapter? And they don't have to be exclusive. Chapters don't have to be only one thing. But the scenes that you organize into chapters should be coherent and sort of have the same goal in mind when pushing the story forward. There needs to be some sort of unifying concept in a chapter. So, for example, you could have one chapter that's a war and there are many battle scenes, or maybe just one long one. And then the next chapter deals with how the characters deal with the aftermath of that battle. So their character development, but also information and how the plot is now affected by this battle that happened. Tip number 3, vary chapter lengths. A question that writing advice bloggers or vloggers often get is, how long should my chapters be? And there's no right or wrong answer to this. Your chapters can be as long as you want them to be. Some writers have chapters that are a few pages. Some writers have chapters that are 20 plus pages. It really is up to you and what suits your style and what works in terms of the previous point about a unifying concept for each chapter. But what I will say is, it's good to have varying chapter lengths. So experiment with varying the lengths to control pacing. So if you have intense action or emotional moments in a short chapter, that creates sort of a sense of urgency. While if you have long chapters, that would be better for more in-depth exploration and slower character development. As with all my tips with pacing, it's very much about understanding where your point of view character is and whether they would be experiencing this situation as fast or slow. Use that to determine whether you're going to go with a short, punchy chapter or with a longer, more exploratory, calmer chapter. This mix of chapter lengths assists with the pacing, but it also keeps the reader's attention longer. Tip number 4, cliffhangers and hooks. This isn't necessarily always going to be true with every chapter, because I think that would feel a bit contrived at some point, but as much as you can without stretching the story into a weird direction, start your chapter with a hook. Something that interests the reader, that hooks them, that makes them think, ooh, I want to know what's going to happen in this chapter. This is an interesting sentence or an interesting scene or whatever. And end it on a cliffhanger. If you end your chapter on a compelling cliffhanger, you leave the reader with questions. They will turn the page to the next chapter, where they'll then find maybe a hook that will keep them reading, and so on and so on. So it could be unresolved conflicts, unexpected revelations, unanswered questions. It doesn't always have to be a massive cliffhanger, like literally, is the person going to survive or not? It could be a cliffhanger in terms of, will this person realize that she wants to be with the love interest or not? So that creates a sense of anticipation, and it keeps the reader reading. Like I said, it won't necessarily always fit into the story arc to have every chapter start with a hook and every chapter end with a cliffhanger, but as far as possible, try to use this structure. Tip number 5, theme and consistency. Now this very much links to tip number 2 about there being some sort of coherent concept or idea that binds a chapter. In this one, it's about maintaining some consistency, especially in tone and atmosphere, throughout a chapter. So scenes might vary in intensity, but try to make sure that the overall atmosphere of the scenes in a chapter are consistent, are somewhat alike. So this will help readers really immerse themselves into whatever tone or atmosphere feeling you're trying to convey, because they sort of sit in it for that entire chapter. And so that helps readers connect with the emotional undertones of the story much more easily. So there's no one size fits all when it comes to organizing a book into chapters. It largely depends on the nature of the story and on your writing style and on what you prefer doing. So flexibility is important, The chapters you have in your first draft don't have to be the chapters you have in your final draft. Experiment with them. Once you have the scenes, try to place them, break it into chapters in a way that makes sense to you and that you think will capture readers the most. So that's it. Those are my 5 tips for organizing your book into chapters. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Remember to hit that subscribe button and ring that little bell if you don't want to miss any videos. I upload writing advice videos on Wednesdays and book reviews on some Fridays. As always, you can find me on my website, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, and BookBub. All the links are listed below, and then I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!